Okay, good morning. In this recorded video today in biology, we just going to go a little bit, try to wind up. I'm sure you know some of these things. We are going to do, we're going to study on the characteristics of living things. So for something to be rewarded as a living thing, for something to be fully known or acknowledged as a living thing, what are some of the characteristics that that particular thing is supposed to have? So we call it characteristics of living things. Characteristics are attributes, personalities or attributes. Okay. So now one of the characteristics of living things is movement. One of the characteristics of living things is called movement. In some books, you will find they say locomotion. So movement or locomotion is one of the characteristics of living things, but we like to restrict ourselves to the term movement. We don't like to use locomotion in most cases because locomotion means the entire body moving from one place to another. But as you can see, trees do not move entirely from one place to another, but trees are able to move. They're able to be affected by wind, so they can move as such, but they don't locomote, meaning a tree won't move entirely, like starting from the roots to the leaves, moving from one place to another. But they can move, they can shake like that. So it is also called movement. So all living things can move. Okay, and it is called movement. Movement is one of the characteristics of living things. Okay, so another one of the characteristics of living things is called reproduction. All living things must be able to reproduce. Reproduction. Now, reproduction is just the process by which living things produce their offsprings. Okay? Every living thing is supposed to have what we call a parent, and every parent is supposed to produce what we call offspring. And that process is called reproduction. Now, reproduction can either be sexual or asexual. Sexual reproduction will involve gametes. Asexual reproduction will not involve gametes. So those are some of the characteristics. The third characteristic of living things is called irritability. Now, in some places, you will find that they don't call it irritability. They call it sensitivity. All living things must be sensitive to their environment, be it a living or a non-living environment. So 3 of these are some of the characteristics of living things. So if a stone is able to move from one place to another, can we call a stone a living thing? No. We have to also look at other factors. You don't just have to look at one characteristic and qualify something as a living thing. No, you look at all these other characteristics. Yes, a stone can move from one place to another, but can it reproduce? Can it bear? Can a stone have offsprings? No. If it doesn't match one of these characteristics, then that stone is not a living thing. So if you want to qualify something as a living thing, it has to approve to all these characteristics that we are putting forth here, called characteristics of living things. So far we have discussed what we call movement, reproduction, irritability. Okay. So another characteristic of living things is excretion. Excretion. Now there's excretion follows, maybe let's just put another one. Excretion follows what we call metabolism. Excretion follows what we call metabolism. Metabolism is also one of the characteristics of living things. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is simply the process of building up or breaking down of food substances. Building up or breaking down. We're basically talking about all the chemical processes that occur in the body of a living organism. Those are called metabolic reactions. So the process is metabolism. As a living thing, you are supposed to exhibit what we call metabolism. If you chew, for instance, you eat bread. Bread, the way that it is a carbohydrate, a polysaccharide. Now, bread has to be broken down into disaccharides, which is maltose, and broken down into what we call monosaccharide, which is glucose. Glucose in the body of a human being is called blood sugar. But in the body of a plant, if bread was to be broken down by a plant, it will be broken down into maltose, and then it will be broken down into cellulose. Not cellulose. So anyways, that's just one of the processes of metabolism, breaking down large food molecules into smaller ones. It is called catabolism. Now, building up smaller substances, for instance, building up amino acids into proteins, it is called anabolism. So anabolism plus catabolism, you come up with what we call metabolism. Okay, so metabolism. Now, after breaking down, for instance, in the cells of a human being, when the cells break down food by the mitochondria, what we're going to have is we're going to release a substance that is no longer useful to the body. That substance is called carbon dioxide. So now carbon dioxide will have to be carried by the hemoglobin in the red blood cells and finally come out of the body through the lungs. Now, that process is called excretion, because carbon dioxide is no longer wanted from the body, and it is a byproduct of the metabolic reactions of the body. Excuse me. So it is removed as such. That process is called excretion. So all living things are supposed to exhibit this property that we call excretion. It is coming from metabolism, or the metabolic process of the body. Excuse me. So these are some of the properties, characteristics of living things. So far we have talked about movement, reproduction, irritability, excretion, metabolism. So excretion, by definition, is the removal of metabolic waste products and toxic materials from the body. Irritability is the ability of a living thing to either respond to or respond against stimuli. Reproduction is the production of offsprings from their parents. Movement simply means moving from one place to another, either entirely or in part. Okay, these are some of the characteristics of living things. So we have talked about excretion, we have talked about reproduction, we have talked about metabolism, we have talked about reproduction, movement, some of these characteristics. Which one have we left? Reproduction. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics. The other ones you can just research them in your books, but I've tried to define some of these for you. After this video, I'm going to just write some notes on the definition. What is movement? What is reproduction? Just in case you forget. Okay, anyway, so we said movement is the change in position. Movement is the change in position, either entirely or in part, by a living organism. Reproduction is the process by which parents in terms of living things, by which parents produce their offsprings. Now, offsprings means children. Relatability is the ability of an organism to respond to or against stimuli.